Hello?
Hello. So have you worked at a coaching before, by any chance?
No, I've not. But in my last career, I had a team of 10 people, so I mentored a lot.
Okay.
So I spent a lot of time doing it. I actually enjoyed it. I mean, not coaching, but mentoring. It's different, I know, but it's about understanding behavioral patterns and
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
helping them with their perspectives, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here is the thing about coaching, especially about people, is that whether we like it or not, we are at the mercy of people's perceptions,
Mm.
right? And so it's very important that you're aware of what's the brand that you have out there. What's
Mm.
w- because how people perceive us is how are they going to collaborate with us, how are they going to relate with us, and all of that stuff. So it's very important that we understand what's the perception and what's our brand there.
Mm.
So that's part of this interview, and the reality is that the higher you go in the organization, the less likely you will get meaningful and honest feedback from others.
Uh, mm.
So that's what I'm saying, that please don't call bars, because I will deliver that, and I'll deliver that feedback to the leaders I coach.
Mm.
Some are okay with that, some are not very happy about it, but that's important, because otherwise they wouldn't know
Right.
what people perceive or how people perceive
Mm.
them. So the first question that I have is, if you could tell me in a few sentences, how long have you known Jens, and in which capacity?
Right. So I've known him for about 4 years. Uh, the first 2 years, none of those 4 years I reported into him. So I'm not from his department. I'm in project management, a different department. So first 2 years, we were just a really small company. So everyone knows everyone in a small
Mhm.
company. So we sort of collaborated on these smaller things and just really small projects, but nothing major. And the last 2 years, he's heading up this big project team. And as a project manager, I have a dotted line into him. So, I help him create plans, manage the teams, look at converting strategy to tactics and all of that. So, in the last 2 years, I'll say I've had very close interactions with him because we're always planning or thinking about something or trying to solve a problem. But it's never as uh, but since I don't report into him, that we don't have that power dynamic. Like I can say my mind and I might be wrong and he might be wrong and that's okay, right? And so we have a different dynamic.
Yeah, got it. So when you think of him, what is the first thing that comes to your mind?
Um, I think just caring. He's just a very humble, caring person, um, which is yeah. I'll stop there. Yeah, I'll say caring. I can go on and on, but you said
Yeah,
one
no.
word.
How does that manifest?
Um, he listens. I've worked at large and small companies in my past. Usually, leaders at his level, they hear, and as you know, they don't listen. Listening is, you know the difference. I'm not going to tell you
Yeah,
the difference,
yeah,
but um, and to me that shocked me when I first started working with him. I was, telling him about some problem I was having, and I just thought he's going to go, yeah, yeah, whatever, just you fix it. Or I started explaining to him something how large companies do things and small companies don't do it that well or whatever. He really listened. Like he asked really good questions, and he said, "Okay, well, how do you think we should do this differently? How do you?" And he made me feel valuable, right?
yeah,
I wasn't some junior guy, and he's some big VP, but I felt like an equal right away. That here's this guy asking for my opinion, and not only did he ask for it, and then when I told him you should do it this way, he actually went and did it that way, right? And then my respect for him just doubled immediately, right?
yeah, yeah.
Um, anyway, I hope that helps.
No, no, no. This is great. So now, in addition to listening, what are his other two strengths? The top three strengths. Obviously, you mentioned that it listens. So what other?
Um, so the other thing I find very rare in leaders is, and which he has, is he doesn't feel threatened by other people who are smarter than him or better than him, either above him or below him. So what I've seen over 4 years, if I have enough time to test this, is he doesn't mind pushing up talent if they're smarter than him or better than him. He recognizes it and he pushes them up, which the wisest leaders do, because most leaders, earlier in their career, they're not ready for that. So he's able to manage that without being threatened by someone else who's better than him, or quote unquote better than him.
Yeah. So he has ego in check.
Yes, I like that. Um, so that would be his second. That he's humble. He pushes people up. Um, the other thing I would say is he's what would I say was the third strength? Um, I'd say he's very collaborative. I would kind of segue into almost, in my mind, personal opinion, almost a fault. Like sometimes I have a good relationship with him, so a lot of times I tell him like, no, hold your ground, like don't just give up, right? But I think sometimes in the interest of collaboration, he's willing to sacrifice his own growth or his own development or his own chance for recognition in the interest of the program. And of course, that's highly sacrificial. That's like Gandhi or Martin Luther King or something. It's like next level. But I also feel that, but you're sacrificing your own career and your own development. Like, why do you let others take credit for what you're doing? And so, to me, that's a great strength. But sometimes I feel like if you overdo it, it becomes a weakness, right?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So here is another question that I have is, I have no idea how you're going to react to this. What is the one thing that he could actually do to have more impact in his role?
I think, like I said, hold his ground. Hold his ground. He a lot of times when people challenge in a good way, like people from other departments, or when it gets political, sometimes, as you know, at the higher levels, it's not always about the smartest idea, the best idea. It's about politics and being savvy and maneuvering, right? You know how it is. And a lot of times, why his people respect him so much is he thinks of the greater good, which is amazing. But the flip side, I feel, is if he can, I don't know how, this is very hard, so I myself don't know how to do this, but if he can be a little more savvy and sort of make himself look good, promote his achievements, his accomplishments. So I don't know what you meant by making an impact. You mean personally for him or for
No, for the company. For the company.
Oh, for the company. That's a really good question. I honestly don't know the answer to that. I think in terms of leadership, doing more impact for the company, I don't see what else he can do. I mean, the fact that he keeps his ego in check and he's willing to bite his tongue, even when things are wrong or incorrect, and to me, I think that's the greatest impact, right? Because he can fight, he can get his ego in between, and he doesn't. So I think that's huge.
So when you said, I'm sorry to interrupt. When you said, like he needs to hold his ground, why do you think is that? Is because he truly wants to give credit and move things along, or because he is somewhat insecure about himself?
Oh, that's a good question. No, I doubt. I doubt the insecurity. I'm trying to think of any examples or any behavioral patterns I've seen. No, I've never heard him beat himself up or tell me he's not good. Because we also hang out socially. We got beers, whatever, right? And you kind of lower your guard when you do that with with your colleagues. No, I can't see insecurity. I think he truly believes in pushing our drugs forward to help patients, because he was a treating physician himself. No, I don't think it's insecurity. No.
So here's another option for you. Is he's pushing because he wants to actually move things along, or because he doesn't want to be seen? He has a need to be liked.
Oh, that's a good question. I think there it might be a bit of both. Because when he first joined, and this is hearsay, this is from his days at Stanford, his colleagues from Stanford said when he first came, he was very stereotypical German, if you can stereotype cultures, if you will. They're very direct, right? Very direct, very to the point. Of course, I'm stereotyping, but you get the idea. But that being said, initially he had rubbed people, this is like many years ago, 10 years ago, he had rubbed many people the wrong way because, California, we're more laid back, we
So he
So
adapted.
he was given a lot of feedback back at Stanford, not at 47, but at Stanford, that you're too direct, you're offending people, people don't like you, they don't want to work with you. So that might have had some impact. So now he might have gone the other way. So I think it might be a bit of both. He wants to push the project forward, but I think he doesn't want to fight with people anymore.
Yeah, and that's what I'm going to say is like this. It's I don't know. I mean, the feeling that I have is I don't believe that he is, or maybe it is. You know, let me ask you that. Do you think that he is conflict averse?
The 4 years I've seen him, I'll be honest. Yeah, he does strike me that way. In the 4 years I've seen him, I've never seen him. Yeah, I've never seen him. Yeah, get angry or upset, which sounds like a good idea, but after a while you're like, are you like, what do you do with your emotions? Like, you go home and punch a bag, or they have to come out somewhere. Like, where is it coming out? Or do you work out? Some people work out like crazy and they burn that energy. Sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, I've never thought of it, but part of it could be that I think he just doesn't want to deal with the conflict.
Yeah, so if he doesn't want to give you the conflict, the easiest thing to do is, okay, you want credit, take it.
Yeah.
And so the price for him, what you said, is that he's compromising his own growth and whatever. But I also think that he might compromise the credit of his team, right? You think about this. Because if his team is working well and they're delivering, and now he needs to go, it's not about himself, but also about his team and the work that people do. And other people come and take credit for it. He's not just compromising himself, but he's compromising the credit of his team. What do you think about that?
I think that's a fair statement. I do. Because I've actually had people in his team, and they love and adore him, don't get me wrong, but a lot of times there'll be meetings or announcements, and the work done by his department is just kind of, very summarily mentioned. And after the meeting, I find out that, his team went above and beyond, or they took a really crazy risk that no one thought of doing, or they came up with a very innovative solution. But I've never heard him highlight that when you talk at the department level.
Yeah.
So yeah, I find that out in hallway conversations, or but yeah, I agree with you completely.
Yeah. So going back into this, if you think about this, it's not about, and again, if you think about this, what we talked earlier is about what we do. It just doesn't only affect us, but the people that depend on us. So even though he might not be willing to take your credit and fight for the credit, what's the price that his team is paying for that as well?
That's a good point. I think that he will really appreciate hearing knowing how much he wants to see them succeed. I think that would be a nice way to motivate him. I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. So you think? I mean, you have seen him in different meetings. What is the behavior that he? How does that manifest when he just gives up the credit, or he just say, okay, I'm done, whatever. How can you describe that for me for a little bit?
So what I always find interesting, so I'm a project manager, right? So one of the things I always observe, so for me, power dynamic is very important, right? So when you walk into a meeting, I'm always cognizant of where people sit and how people sit, because body language and the subconscious cues, as you know, they send a lot of messages.
Yeah.
I always find it fascinating that when we walk into a meeting room, Jens always wants to sit in the back at the very end of the room. So all the people who are credit hungry or they want to be in the limelight, it's always interesting. They always sit in the front. They're in the front. They're always talking. They're always making big movements, and they have a comment about everything. I find it interesting. He sits all the way in the back. He rarely has comments. He doesn't comment on everything. He always usually keeps quiet. And when it comes critical to his department, or he's asked a question, he will answer. But he will never volunteer something that it's not been asked, or he'll never pipe up and say, no, that doesn't make sense. This is what my department is doing, blah, blah, whatever, right? So I always find it interesting that the fact that he sits all the way in the back doesn't, is not very extroverted, right? I don't know if I'm answering the question, but to me, that's how it manifests, right?
Yeah, no, that's what
Upwards
I was
limelight.
getting into it. I mean,
Yeah.
how does that manifest? Because as you said, I mean, it's how people perceive us again. And if he's perceived to be sitting at the back and no showing up, no making room for himself, pretty much,
Right.
then people will take advantage of that. I
Yeah.
mean, not intentionally, but that's how we're wired. Let's put
Yeah.
it that way. So let me ask you that question again, going back to after this conversation is, what is the one thing that you think that he can do to add more impact to his job? If this already changed your perception.
No, I like where you're going with this because trust me, I've had this conversation. Well, I'm not a coach, of course, but like you, but I've had this conversation with him many times over the years, saying, stand up for yourself. But I like the way you recommended. If we tell him that your team, you need to recognize your team. Okay, don't talk about yourself. It's fine.
Yeah.
If it makes you uncomfortable, don't. But highlight what your team has done, what they've accomplished, how they've gone above and beyond what can be done. And by doing that indirectly, he's making himself look good because he's the leader at the end of the day.
Yep.
He's making an impact because people recognize what his people are doing, and he's showing them how he's leading all of this without constantly saying, "Hey, look at me, look at how awesome I am," right?
Yeah. I think that, if you think about this, it's much easier to advocate for somebody, especially for people like him, and even people like myself. I hate talking about myself, but it's easier for me to advocate for somebody, like my team or his team. Hey, this is what it's doing, this is what happened, and this is what they discovered. At the same time, to your point, it's like he's responsible for that. So in a way, he's actually making room for himself through his team, as opposed to I done it, I've done it. You know what I'm saying? Right. Okay. And I think that the way I like to ask questions is about how things manifest. Because to your point, like body language is a big deal. And so we have to be aware of what is the message that we send when we walk into a room and how you walk into the room. Right? What could he do to help you achieve your goals?
Help me personally?
Yeah. I mean, I know that you have a direct, you have a dotted line to him, but you interact with him, whether we like it or not, there is some, is there anything that he could actually do to help you achieve your goals?
I think with me, no. And I mean that in a good way because he's very collaborative. He's very transparent. He's we're always sharing ideas, feedback, thoughts. He's pretty perceptive about people. He's also pretty good at reading body language and looking at the politics and dynamics.
He can watch other people's body language by his.
Yeah, well,
but not his.
That's true, Luis. Yeah, with me, I don't think so. I have a lot of respect for him, and no, I don't think so.
All right. So imagine, like 3 months from now, and assuming that he took the advice and he's actually doing something about it, what will you be looking forward as a sign of progress?
That's a good question. I think him being more vocal in meetings. And when I mean vocal, I don't mean, just talk, but vocal meaning highlighting his accomplishments in whatever technique you teach him. But people have a lot of respect for him, even in management. I know this, but the problem is when we're sitting in the meeting, it always ends up looking like some other people are, and you probably know who they are better, faster, smarter, stronger, and for work that is not as thorough as his. So I would look for him highlighting accomplishments, either his or his team's or the project team, whatever it is. And
so I wanna pick on something that you mentioned before, and before I forget, you said that he sits in the back. He doesn't speak unless he has a question or unless somebody asks him a question directly.
Right.
And when he asks the questions, are the questions related? What's the perception of how he asks questions? Are the questions like narrow specifics or more strategic? Like for instance, how does that happen as opposed to what is the effect of that?
No, that's a very good question, Luis. They're usually very thoughtful, very insightful questions. So it's obvious that, he's taken his time to think, process what's going on versus, just saying something to sound smart, right? And but I should also explain, and I didn't, so I'm not giving you the full picture. The other thing I like is, even though he sits in the back and he only speaks towards the end, but when he talks, everyone listens. Everyone's looking at him and they're like nodding their heads and going, okay, okay, okay. So he has power. You can see that he's commanding the room. So to me, that's very impressive.
Yeah. But the question that I was asking specifically is about questions about specifics, like, hey, why didn't you use this prime set instead of this other set? Or
Right.
as opposed to more strategic questions like, what is the effect of that decision on the broader project?
Right. It's more strategic. So you're exactly right. He sort of goes broad and says, okay, that happened, or someone made a mistake. He's like, yeah, that's fine, whatever. But here's what it means, and so it's okay. So even if you made a mistake, it's not a big deal because in the grand scheme of things, it's fine. We can accommodate it this way, and so it's more big thinking. Yeah.
So the way I see this is that the people that ask questions to problem solve and people that ask questions to understand. Problem solve is why did you use that instead of that? Yeah. Understand the strategic, what is the effect of that on the bigger project? Yeah. So I want to understand what is his line of thinking, what is his line of questioning? Is it problem solving or is it strategic questioning, thinking?
I think it's a bit of both. It depends on who's presenting and what the topic is. If it's someone more junior, he's more problem solving. If it's someone a little more, senior, like me, then he's more about giving guidance, right? So don't solve the problem, but just guide, and then say you go figure it out. But look at it from this perspective. Yes, I think it depends on the level of the person's experience. Yeah.
Good. Is there anything else that that I haven't asked for you or you haven't expressed about?
No, Luis, I don't think so. I think these are very thorough, very insightful questions. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it, man, and enjoy the high of the acquisition. And I hope that that you're going back to Gilead. It's all awesome. And are you gonna see him today?
Yes, I'm actually going to with a meeting with him right now.
All right. So tell him I say hi. Tell him that I've been poking about how he does.
Okay. Got it.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Louis. Bye.